Whether you're looking for answers to specific life questions or just seeking to become the best version of you possible, welcome to the Mental Breakdown and Psych Reg podcast, where we offer insight, information, and strategies based upon research and years of practice as clinical psychologists. So sit back, have a listen, and get connected with our hosts, Dr. Bernie Wilkinson and Dr. Richard Marshall. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about, what we're going to address and talk about a question that was asked wrote into us by a listener about, and we're just calling it psychological triage. Mm-hmm. But, of course, triage is trying to figure out what deserves attention first, what we should treat first. And so the great question was, when I'm having an issue at work, if I'm having issues at home, if I'm having issues in multiple areas, how do I know which to address first? Mm-hmm. That's a fantastic question, but also an incredibly difficult question to respond to.
That's right, because triage comes out of the emergency room, usually battlefield operations, where you decide you have to make a very quick decision about where do you put your energy. There are too many casualties. Right. You can't possibly deal with all of them. So which ones can wait? It's what we do in emergency rooms. If you don't come in bleeding or in heart attack mode, you're going to wait until we deal with the more severe crises first, and we get all that stabilized. Then we'll deal with your ear infection. Right. Ear infection isn't going to kill you. Right. So the first layer of the triage is it life threatening? If it's life threatening, that gets first attention. If you're popping blood out of a couple of arteries, you're going to be seen first. Right. Okay. Because there's no time to wait. Right. If you're in the middle of a heart attack, you're going to be seen quickly. Right. In fact, many emergency rooms are setting up special units for the crisis management units. Right. Okay. Now, and the rest of us wait. But psychological triage is a little bit different because there's not. Well, I guess we could talk about psychological arteries and things like that, but it's very, very different because what you're struggling with the most may not be the same thing. If somebody else was experiencing the same thing, they may not have as much psychological distress from it as you do. So, it's going to vary. There's going to be some variability between people. Right. So, but it's the same concept that what the listener was asking is, how do I know which one to attend to first? Right. Which is there one that's more important, and how do I make that decision? Right. So I think that there's a couple of things that we need to think about when we're considering how to triage, and just as in the sort of the medical field globally, the first layer is is it life threatening? I think that you could do that in the psychological area as well. Certainly, if there's something going on in your life that makes you feel that when you're doing it or when you're involved in it, it's leading to self-harming thoughts, or if it's leading to suicidal ideation or something like that, that is absolutely something you have to address first. Right. That's right. You got to get help for that immediately because. Just as with a mortal injury, this is a psychological injury that's causing those kinds of thoughts that could lead to other life-threatening problems. Right. So the first layer is the same. If it's life-threatening in that way, address that first. Right. Now, most of us don't experience issues to that significance. Extent. Right. And so now this is where we really get into the gray, because what happens is that many times the issue that's causing a problem at work may be the same issue that's causing a problem at home or in a different setting or in a different area of your life, but just sort of look a little bit different. If you're having a really difficult time at work and you're having a really difficult time at home, it may be that the real problem is communication. Well, you're communicating poorly at work, you're communicating poorly at home, and it's leading to problems in both places. Right. But it's going to be hard for most people to figure that out on their own. To sort it out. Because what that first step is what is the distress? Right. And where does it occur? Right. So that's the first question you're going to ask. You've already asked the first question, is it life-threatening? Now you go to the if it's a no, then you go to the second question is, what is my distress? What's causing it?
Well, you might know not, but what is the distress and where is it occurring?
Right.
And if it's occurring everywhere,
right,
then you know that there's a common problem that's somehow tying all these things together.
Yeah. So if it is happening everywhere, then yes, it could be an underlying issue that's affecting most other areas.
Right.
But if it's not, what you're hopefully learning at this stage of the triage is, okay, if the problem is more prevalent, if it's more prevalent at work and not as prevalent at home or somewhere else, okay, so now we can sort of narrow our focus.
That's right.
To work. We can look at, you would look at what's going on at work, and continue to sort of tease it apart and say, okay,
That's right.
Is it more likely when this person's at work and when this person's not at work? Is it more likely when I'm doing this kind of work or that kind of work, or if this is happening or that's happening? And so the goal here is to tease it apart and see what's causing the issue.
That's right.
So we've gone from is it life-threatening to is there a location that is more prevalent, and if there's a location that's more prevalent, that's going to be the place that we're going to address first.
Right. That's right.
More so than other areas where, obviously, many of these steps so far should make perfect sense. Once you identify that place, again, you tease it apart and you try to narrow your focus a little bit more and see if you can find out what's actually causing some of the issues and some of the problems.
Because if you've decided that it's a work problem,
right,
then the next question is it a person or is it a task?
Right.
Okay. So you narrow it down there. If you're a teacher, for example, if everything goes well until the assistant principal comes in the room, then you have a problem with the assistant principal.
Right.
If it's every time I teach reading, I become anxious and frustrated, then it's the task that's bothering you. So once you know what the stress is and where it's occurring, then you have to make that next decision. Is it a person or is it a task that's the source of the problem?
Right. And so that's how you're going to... And then that's how you're going to address the problem. So as you keep whittling it down, that's how you're going to find the problem.
Right.
Now, if you can't narrow it to a particular thing like work or home, then you're starting to get into, again, this sort of gray area where the problem is something that is pervasive, that's influencing lots of other areas of your life. And this may be a time when you need to get help. You may need to get some assistance in trying to figure it out. Because if it's, some of the examples that we've given so far, you have hopefully been able to narrow it down and identified something pretty specific that you need to address. You may still need help. You may still need therapy or treatment, especially if it's life-threatening, of course. But, if it's a particular task at work, and unless you quit that job and do something else, you're not going to be able to get away from it. You may need therapy or treatment of some sort.
Yeah, I think there are probably two times when you may want to seek some assistance. One is if it is generalized,
right?
That if you're anxious everywhere, that it's not a specific anxiety, it's not a specific fear or a specific phobia.
Right.
You're just generally anxious every place. You may want to get some help for that. If you're generally depressed everywhere, at home, at work, when you're with family, then that's a problem where you may want to seek some assistance.
Yeah.
The other time is if you identify that it's a person, but you've tried some things and they're not working, then you may want to seek some professional assistance to solve that specific problem. So I think those are the two times when your body is sort of telling you that maybe it's time to seek some assistance.
Right. And just to kind of build onto that just a little bit, we don't treat people a lot, or we don't see people a lot who have very specific issues.
Right.
If you have, like we talk about people who have a fear of flying. Well, I don't know that I have ever had a patient who had a fear of flying.
I've had one in 40 years.
And the reason for that is because, if that's the only thing that you're stressed about, if that's the only thing that you have an issue with, you just don't do that.
Right.
And then you're okay. There's no issue.
Yeah, if
when it's generalized, that's the problem.
If you have a fear of roller coasters, stay off roller coasters.
Yeah.
If you don't, You don't like to go to certain restaurants, don't go to those restaurants.
Right.
Okay.
So when it's really specific like that, it's a little bit easier. But I think that the spirit of the question from the listener, though, is, is how to, if you're experiencing problems, if you're experiencing issues, sometimes it's difficult to even go through this process.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes it's difficult to even just kind of clear your mind enough to be able to process it and think about it. And I think that
maybe that's the third prompt,
right?
That you just can't sort it out,
right?
You kind of know what it is, but you just can't unscramble the eggs,
right? Right. Yeah. A lot of times patients will come in and we'll talk about, we need to address these 3 lifestyle things: eating, your diet, your exercise, your sleep, and we need to work on these skills. And they do ask, well, where do I start? And that it's a little overwhelming.
Right.
When you give somebody, it's like I always equate it to going to the dentist. And you leave, you go to the dentist the first time and you leave and they give you this list of things that we have to do this. Right. And it's like, and then there's that bottom line money amount. And it's like, okay, we're not going to do any of that.
Too many zeros on that one.
That's right. So,
but you're right. Couples will come in and they'll say, "We don't know. We're not sure what the problem is."
Right.
And that's really the third prompt.
Yeah.
Is if you can't sort it out, get somebody to triage it.
Right.
To get your priorities in order.
Right.
Which one do you want to take? Which one is, if one of these is going to lead to divorce, that's the one you want to do first.
Right.
So get some help sorting out which one you should address first.
Right.
And work your way down the list.
Yeah, and even if you're, if you're in that situation where it's like, okay, I know I need to address my sleep. I know I need to exercise more. I know I need to eat better. I know I need to learn relaxation techniques, and I know on and on and on. And you think, okay, what we're really talking about is I got to change my entire life.
Right.
Right. So where do I start with that? Well, the place to start, what we typically recommend, the place to start is whatever is easiest for you.
Yeah.
Because you do have a lot that you may have to change, and you don't want to pick the most challenging thing first, because remember what we've talked about before, motivation comes from success. And if you're not finding success, your motivation is going to drop considerably.
That's right.
And you're not going to keep with it. So if it's easier for you to just say, you know what, for right now, every evening I'm just going to go for a 30-minute walk.
Right.
If that's the easiest thing to do before changing your diet and changing anything else, do that. If it's easier for you to just say, you know what, every night at 10 o'clock I'm going to go to bed, start there. Right. Whatever it is, you keep your list of things that you have to work on, but just sort of put them in order of what's going to be the easiest for you to do, and start there.
That's what we advise parents do that with children who are, parents are going to say, well, everything is wrong. He won't do anything we ask him to do. Where do I start? Well, you can't address everything.
Right.
So you take the easiest one first and get some success. Right. Start with the easy stuff. Right. Don't start with the hardest task.
Right.
You're tempted to. You want to say, well, let me deal with this because start with the easy one and work toward the hard ones.
Right.
And you'll find that as you get that process into place, the hard ones may become less difficult.
Right.
Because you're succeeding. You and your child are experiencing some success and some cooperation.
Absolutely.
And the other problems might just go away on their own.
Absolutely.
So start with the easy stuff. Some people call it low-hanging fruit. But start with the easy things first where you can have some successes.
Absolutely. And with that, you will find that then you can, once you create some of those new routines and new schedules, then you can add on other things, and you'll find that the other things will just come naturally. If you're going for a 30-minute walk every night, it's going to be easier to go to sleep a little bit earlier on time, and so some of these things are just going to sort of naturally work together.
Themselves. Right.
Yeah. But definitely get help if you need to organize that. Because
to organize your list.
Yeah,
That's
because
right.
It is difficult if you're in a home with 4 other people and you're making this change but nobody else is changing. That's tough,
especially with food.
yeah, especially
that's
with diet.
That's a tough one.
So I hope that's helpful.
It was good.
It is a challenge. It is tough because anytime we talk about change, anytime we talk about trying to fix something in our lives, we have to talk about change. And anytime we talk about change
is difficult.
It's difficult. So, and you got to figure out where to start. So, if you have any other questions about it, or if you have any strategies that's worked for you, let us know. Write to us. You can get in touch with us in a variety of ways. We always look forward to hearing from you. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and iTunes. And
somebody asked me the other day, where can I find these things? And so I went down the list.
It seems like it's everywhere.
Went down the list. They said, so I won't have a problem then.
Yeah, and make sure you if you follow us on iTunes. We have a link in the show notes. Click that link and write us a review, rate us, so that we can just keep getting the word out to more and more people, get more and more people involved in talking about this stuff. So, all right, that's it. So until next time, I'm Dr. Bernie.
I'm Dr. Richard.
Stay happy, stay healthy, and forget to be afraid.